Hey, Sam, man, I'm so glad to have you here in this type of a conversation. When we think about what our church partners are doing right now, what our trip leaders are doing, how they're planning, there's always these constant themes that seem to be arising in this season,
Yeah.
and everybody takes them differently. And so I know from our conversation briefly, you're taking them in a specific way and you're applying them in your own context. And so
Yeah.
I'm really grateful for an opportunity to kind of hear a little bit more of those specifics and have you share those ideas with the rest of our trip leaders and youth workers. Before we get into that stuff though, give us a really quick rundown who you are, where you are, ministry, life things, and then we'll jump into kind of how has COVID impacted you.
Yeah. Yeah. So my name is Sam Perkins, and I'm a pastor for, well, this is evolving too, but I'm a pastor for youth and their families at Westminster Presbyterian in Greensboro, North Carolina. Um, uh, and due to COVID, we've had some staff changes, and so now I'm pastor for formation. So I have children's ministry and adult ministry now as well. Um, and I've been doing youth ministry for full time for 17 years. Um, and all of it shows right here. And we've been
Mostly
in
just
North.
these.
Yeah, it's really weird, right?
Yeah.
Which is kind of, it makes it look like my beard is forked almost, which is
I know. It looks
just going
good.
all the way. But uh, so we've been in North Carolina for 6.5 years, and prior to that, I served up near Chicago. But my wife and I have three children. My daughter's 13 and in the eighth grade. My son's 10 and in fifth grade, and my younger daughter is 7 and in second grade. And we love it down here, and we love doing ministry and with these folks in this community, even in the midst of everything that's happening right now. But yeah, so that's me in a tiny little nutshell. Yeah.
Man. Well, and so how specifically, well, and you can get as specific as you want, but when it comes to how COVID has impacted you and ministry, maybe like just even the approach that you have to ministry in this season, can you share a little bit of that and maybe a little bit of kind of the lessons you've learned within it?
Yeah. Yeah. So as I was telling you, I was supposed to be on sabbatical in the spring, and I ended up coming back early from that, just in response to everything that was happening. And to be completely honest, I really kind of felt like, ooh, this will be kind of cool. We'll do virtual youth group and virtual church school and virtual
Right.
small groups, and the kids are on, electronic devices all the time anyway, and this is going to be a blast and whatever. And it was not a blast, and we found that out pretty quickly, and it was very discouraging. And I suppose I've ridden that train of discouragement for quite a while. I mean, if I'm being real vulnerable here, like I've been beat up by the whole thing, and I'm sure that is a sentiment that's shared by a lot of folks in ministry and in other fields as well. Um, it, it's it's hard because I think we're geared, we're wired to plan and be creative, and when we hit one of those ideas that we're super jazzed about, and put the time and the planning into it, and we get everything put together and we roll it out, and then it falls flat and we don't get that response. That just adds, it just heaps on to that discouragement, and you feel defeated. So um, we've obviously didn't take any trips this summer.
Sure.
This is the first time in 18 years that I haven't led at least one mission trip or one camp um, experience, and that felt weird too. It was great to be able to spend time with my family, um, but at the same time, it was I was very out of sorts. Um, so you couple the just feeling out of sorts and being discouraged and trying to determine the best way, the best approach to connect with your kids and your community. Um, and I like to think that I'm a pretty creative person,
Mm.
and kind of an outside the box thinker, and some of them are good and some of them are stinkers, and that rhyme, by the way, and I did it on purpose. Um, uh, but I feel, and whether it's exhaustion from before, or exhaustion that's been compounded by the pandemic and the social issues that we've been experiencing and dealing with, I feel like I've hit a creative block. I mean, this is the worst time to hit a creative block. Um, so really, we've just boiled it down. Instead of trying to do a bunch of stuff to connect with the kids, we've just boiled it down to just, you know, driveway visits and texting and phone calls and social media interactions, and trying to make sure that at least we're aware. I mean, we may not be having a lot of conversations with kids and families about the things that are happening in their lives, just for a variety of reasons, but
Yeah.
just being aware so that we can be in prayer
Mm.
um, with them. Um, and like I was telling you earlier, I've wanted to do,
Mm.
and I've had good people come alongside me who have reminded me that we need to give ourselves permission to be affected by this,
Mm.
and
Right.
not feel like we have to be immune and we have to charge on because we're the church,
Mm.
or we're the spokespeople for the church. Um, we're deeply affected by this. Our families are deeply affected by this.
Mm.
Um, I, I I don't feel like I'm any good to anyone, or I can be adequately creative. I can be effective if I'm running on empty,
Mm.
um, or operating out of that discouragement. I
Yeah.
mean, that's kind of like Eeyore showing up to youth group on Sunday night, just be like, "Hey guys." I mean, immediately like, "Oh, he's really excited to be here, right?"
Right.
Um, and I just can't move forward with in that hopelessness
Right.
and that despair.
Yeah. That's so important, man. I mean, when you were sharing about that, it it brought me back to the idea of like, what are the things that we value that we put into our ministry that creates value for other
Yeah,
people
yeah,
too, right? Like, and in this season, in every season, but in a season that's as stressful as this one, it brings up realities that are always true, right? It brings up the best of people, the worst of people, and the truths that really are truths in and outside of a pandemic. And that one that like resonates with what you said is the idea of the value that we pour into ourselves
yeah,
and the way that we take care of ourselves can be a way that we can then pour into our ministry in a better way and bring more value to our ministry and to the lives of our students and their families. And so I love that that's something that you feel like is so important to share with other youth workers and trip leaders in this season, because it's so rare that we pause the busyness, where to do something that might in the moment feel ineffective, but in the long term is the only thing that makes it sustainable. So when we're thinking about kind of the questions that we're getting from youth workers, a core question that I wanted to kind of bring you into and have your help providing, at least from your perspective, some answers to, is this idea of, in the midst of the chaos today, how in the world do we plan 10 to 12 months in advance, right? Because I mean, it's most of the mission trips that we help facilitate in our community partnerships and in our communities that we serve are in the summer. And
Yep.
so think 10 to 12 months in advance about that mission trip is hard, but the logistics and all that stuff for a lot of folks has to start now. I mean, we're already planning it, but like we're not also juggling ministry that happens this Sunday, right? So like we've got that in our own worlds, in our own churches we serve in, but it's not a part of what we do at Youth Work. So how have you been able to find that path forward in the midst of all the things that are constantly changing now and the way that you're responding now? How have you been able to plan for that mission trip already? That's 10 to 12 months in advance.
Yeah. Well, and pencil for sure.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, I like to have next summer planned by the time this summer ends.
Sure.
For the most part,
Yeah.
I mean, as soon as I mean, obviously full disclosure here, we've been using YouthWorks for 10 years.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And I mean, as soon as you guys open up registration for the next summer, like I'm on it, because I want to make sure we get the location we want and the dates that work and everything. So, but knowing that there is still a possibility that next summer is going to look different.
Sure.
What we've done is basically I feel like we had a really great summer plan for the summer of 2020. I was bringing 25 graduated high school seniors to Montana. It was our largest trip ever. And we've been going out to the Northern Cheyenne Reservation, or I've been going out there for 10 or 11 years now, and this church I've been taken out. This would have been, I think, our 7th trip out there. And we had another high school conference we were going to, and a middle school mission trip we were going to, and so I thought, we've had really good trips planned here. We had all the details worked out, and I don't want to kind of abandon that. And so we basically just took summer 2020, picked it up, moved it to summer 2021. The players will be different, right? And certainly the environment is going to be altered by the things happening in the world. But that was kind of our mindset. And if things don't happen in summer 2021, we may just pick it up and move it over one more time and just keep bumping it, right? Saves us a little hassle. But also, like, is it foolishness to plan that far ahead? Maybe, but so like I can't. I'm not just going to sit on pins and needles waiting for somebody to say, "All right, we're clear for go," and then be like, "Oh, okay, let's do it," and then just throw all this together. For me, it's helpful to have that done and done. So that I can begin, once kind of some of the detail stuff, obviously there's going to be stuff that comes in and trickles in later on, but once major detail stuff is established, I can begin to get excited. I can begin to get other people excited, and we can begin to nurture some hope, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's certainly a lack of that these days, and I don't want to say rightly so, but it's certainly understandable. So if I put it out there, even if it's just on my calendar, I've got a hope that next summer we're going to travel. Next summer we're gonna be able to have an experience in an Indigenous American community that will undoubtedly change the lives of the people from our group, and hopefully impact the lives of the people in those communities. And we will learn, and we will grow, and we will be stretched, and we will be challenged, and it will be one of those things that they come back now sharing the burden of some of these communities, and hopefully it will convict them and compel them to do something, right? Beyond that 1 week experience. And that's kind of been our philosophy there. But I put that out there just so it's something for me to look forward
Hmm.
um, to maybe ground me just a little bit. And if we get to, next spring and the the temperature in the pool is still a little too a
Right.
little too off, and we can't go swimming, then um, we'll adjust. But for me, and this has kind of been our philosophy for planning things for this fall too. For me, it's a lot easier for me to have something on the calendar for me to have a plan in place
Hmm.
and adapt or alter that plan than to have no real plan, and then when we find out we can do something, try to throw it together. Um,
That's good, man. I mean, that idea of um, building out a plan and a process for your ministry um, in a timeline that works and that makes sense, right? Like you mentioned that you're on this regular rhythm of this at the end of every summer already having the next
yeah,
year's worth of ministry kind of mapped out, and it really is fulfilling the same kind of purpose. But I think the the thing that allows us to adapt is having some anchor things in place to
yeah,
know because if you plan a mission trip, and I know that you already do this, and so this is kind of just celebrating the way that you do it. We hope that every church partner plans a mission trip because they believe in the value of service experiences as a part of the discipleship of teenagers. And
yeah,
so really, if you're anchoring it on that, we want something that speaks to that value in that part of the scope and sequence of the year.
mhm,
um, then you've got that anchored thing. You
yeah,
can build some details around it, and if the worst situation happens and it's not healthy for our indigenous partners, right, for groups to come in, then you can still work off of that anchor of we want service experiences to develop and disciple or be a part of the discipleship of our teenagers. It just might look a little different. Maybe it's serving in a different community or something. So I think that that's a really important thread that can run through all of your planning. Whether it's, I mean, I'm saying your as in the general youth worker of like whether it's a mission trip or a fall retreat or spring retreat or anything, it gets at the core of like why do you do it in the first place, right? Like you don't just do it just to have something on the calendar. You do it
yep,
because it speaks to a value that you have.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah,
Well, and there's so much of it that's relational. It's not.
sure.
Are there trips? Have I even led trips where it felt like the 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 MO of the group was just to go and do a project and come back and hey, good
Right.
job. We put on a new roof. Um, but so much of what we do and so much of our philosophy is about the relationship piece, and we haven't abandoned our relationships, right?
Right. Right.
Um, we can't abandon those relationships. We can't abandon the need for relationship and the need for growing and investing in those relationships. And again, for us, it's been important to return to this community year after year um, because of the relationships that we've established there, and the value of the relationships with some individuals, but certainly that community and that experience. And
Yeah.
it is a relationship with the experience, not just people, but with the experience. There's a relationship with that place, with that land.
Right.
um,
Yeah.
and though we take different students every year, um, you know, they glean from our relationship some of that value,
Mm.
even before they get there and create their own relationship. So I see a great need for us to continue um, laying the groundwork for that kind of relationship building just as much as the relationships that we're continuing to lean into.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's good, man. Well, is there any kind of like final bit of encouragement or like thought that you'd like to share with our trip leaders?
Yeah. So I was thinking about this, and really, there's a couple things.
Yeah.
One is at a conference I went to years ago when I was first starting in youth ministry. Somebody told me that one of the best things that we can do is be unproductive. um, and so again, and I feel like I've said this already, but just to reiterate, like we need to give ourselves permission to be unproductive,
Mm,
um, especially right now.
mm,
And not just so that we can rest our bodies and our minds, but so that we're available to how the Spirit does want to move us, right? I mean,
mm,
I think right now it's so easy for us to say, we got to get through this, nose to the grindstone, plow forward. We got to make something happen. We got to get this done. We got to make sure we hold on and sustain and don't lose our grip here. But when we're doing that, when we're so focused on getting programs started and getting things on the calendar and doing, then we plow forward right on past
mm.
the Spirit standing here going, I was really hoping that we would do things a little differently because they are pretty different right now. But you just do you.
Right.
Um, I'll just be over here waiting on you. Um, and so we kind of missed that. Um, and the other thing I was going to say is slipping my mind right now. But I feel I, I feel like we make God really small
Mm,
um, a lot of the
mm,
time, and maybe the current climate has caused us to focus our attention on things that we call God,
mm,
um, but share so little of God's identity
mm,
that it's almost blasphemous.
mm,
Um, and we act as though God's not big enough to overcome
mm.
these things. And I'm not saying like we should just sit back and cross our arms and say God's going to fix everything.
Right.
I feel like to do that is naive and foolish too,
Yeah.
because we're the body, right? We're the instruments.
Right.
Um, but we have to allow God to use us, um, and inform us as to how to move forward, and then be bold enough to really and truly and faithfully follow that great big God,
Mm,
into this unknown
yeah.
season. Um, yeah, I mean, I don't, and this will fall differently on different ears, but I don't believe for a second that God said, um, these people are being really crummy and the world has
Mm,
gone to pot, and so I'm gonna send a really nasty virus down, and I'm gonna send a whole bunch of civil unrest down there to punish them. I don't think a good gracious God works that way.
mm,
Um, but I do think a good, great, big, gracious God um, brings light into all darkness, and the darkness doesn't know what to do with it. And we get to be light bearers,
yeah.
and and so I would encourage everyone to take the basket off your lamp if there is one on it,
Mm,
and be a beacon. Be a city on a hill, shine that light for all to see,
mm,
um, and just love. I mean, I think that's the thing we need most right now. I mean, there's so much vitriolic rhetoric, um, in the one place where everybody's turning for their connection these days, online, on social media, right?
Yeah,
On the news, on TV. Um, and yet the real ache is not necessarily found in the words. It's found behind the words and under the words and in the hearts of people who don't know what to do and don't know what to believe and don't know how to plan and how to do ministry and how to receive ministry
yeah.
and where God is. And more than any other time, like we just need to ask the simple question, like you asked earlier, like how can we pray for you? How can I love you better? How can I love myself better? How can I love God better? Um, and then again, be brave and bold enough to 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 do those things
Mm,
like Jesus.
mm.
Um, yeah.
It's good, man. Well, Sam, thanks so much for taking the time to share. I'm really grateful for you and the way that you lead in your own ministry, but also the way that you speak life and truth into the world of youth ministry that is so desperate for these reminders. So, man, thanks for taking the
You're
time.
welcome. Thanks for contacting me, Jacob.
Yeah, man.
Miss seeing you, and I miss seeing a lot of people.
Yeah.